Most of you would have gone there. Most of you would have seen this. At least you must have read about it and you know much about it. It's called the Big Temple. They called it the Big Temple. Why do they call it a big temple? There are so many things that we got to learn about it, how and why it's known as the Big Temple. And with these words of introduction, I welcome you all to this presentation. Now, when you go to the temple, the first gateway is what you see here. It's known as the Kerlanthakkan Thiruvayal. Nowadays, when you go into the temple, most of the temples have a very big Rajgopuram. You call that Rajagopuram, the very big tower. And then you go into that, the sanctum will be a small one. Earlier days, the Gopurams that were built were very small. The Vimana on top of the sanctum alone used to be big. So this was the practice in those days. And here you have the small tower, the Gopuram entering. It's known as Kerlanthakkan Thiruvayal, named after Rajarajan, who won over the Kerala region, defeating the Kandalur totally. So that's the first entrance as you go through that. And when you go through this is the beautiful one with a lot of stucco images and as a magnificent entrance to the great temple of Tanjavur. Now, passing through this, you enter here, you find another entrance gateway to the temple, which is known as Rajarajan Thiruvayal. It's named after the King Rajaraja, and a fine compound wall running all around there. And this beautiful entrance gateway has got two Dwarapalaka images standing there at the entrance. Now look at this. Two huge Dwarapalakas. They're gatekeepers, what you call them. Dwarapalaka means it's gatekeepers of that. They are the people who are there in the temple gateway, giving you the permission to go into the temple. This is a colossal one, 16 feet in length and almost about 10 feet wide, and a huge one, monolithic, made of a single stone on either side. These Dwarapalakas are the guardians of the temple, and we pass through them. Now, when we go to all temples, we'll see these sort of images. Do we really know what is it meant for and why it is there? Nobody cares to know about it. We just see some two huge images and then we pass on. Now, and this entire temple from this gateway is surrounded by a stone wall, beautiful wall. And this wall is completely built out of stone with beautiful Nandis on the top. And you have some sculptural images on either side and things like that. And this wonderful wall was built along with the temple. And this was built by not Rajarajan. His commander-in-chief, Krishna Raman, had built this wonderful wall. Now see these beautiful images in the close quarters. You see this man. Such a tall person standing like that with four arms. One arm holding like this. And every arm that he has got a mudra in that explains to you what is the greatness of this particular thing. Now closely look at this. He's a fiery person standing tall with two tusks coming out of his mouth. And such a huge person. You know, he's stamping something on a club like that. Just see the club. You can see a beautiful elephant. An elephant, you know what is the size of an elephant? It's such a huge one. If that elephant has to be swallowed by a snake, which is something like an anaconda, the snake should be really very, very big. The elephant itself is very big, and the snake which has to swallow the elephant has to be really huge. And look at this man, he's put the foot on the top of that snake as if he's stamping on a worm. You come across so many worms, you stamp it on it. So this fellow should be a mighty strong fellow. Right? So when this huge Dwarapalaka who is mighty and strong, he cautions you when you enter the temple. He says, beware of yourself. This is the Tarjani. He says, beware of yourself. You are entering to the abode of the God. This is the mudra. He says, you are entering to the abode of God. If you think I am such great, the God inside is mightier and you can never know about the greatness. And then when you go there, it is bliss. That's what this he shows here. It's bliss inside. So you got to understand this, how mighty the God is, and then to go into this. So normally people skip looking at these sculptures, they think it's something huge, and they just walk away that. But when you see the real meaning in understand this particular thing, it gives you a lot of immense pleasure in understanding the temples. Now, as you come from the inside of the second Gopuram, you have the compound wall, and there are plenty of shrines all around. Most of the shrines are very, very dilapidated, and there are different shrines for the Ashtadikpalakas, Shadgunya Devatas, and so many other things there all around. There were 34 or 36 shrines all around there, and most of the shrines are empty now, and it's been totally dilapidated now. All the images have gone there. See, look, every corner you find the small Vimana. So all these Vimanas were there all over the places, and they were dedicated for different gods, especially Ashtadikpalakas and all those things here. You see that? Like that you have it. In some of the places the Vimanas are intact, and you can see the Vimanas which are basically on top of the Ashtadikpalakas. Then after that you enter into the temple after the passing the Nandi Mandapam. The Nandi is a huge colossal Nandi which is a later addition brought in by the Nayak period. That Nandi is a huge Nandi which is a monolithic Nandi which was a later addition. Original Nandi of Rajarajan's period is elsewhere. Now as you enter the temple, normally the temple in those days, the entrance were to the sides and not into the straight one. This is a later addition which has been made here. Original entrance to the sanctum of the temple is always through the sides, like the God is in your heart and the veins and the arteries come and give the blood to that. So that way you go not straight to the God, but through the sides. So that's how it represents in this entrance on the sides. And you have beautiful Dwarapalaka image here also. And there are a few other images of the Ashtavasus there. Now these, what is this? What happened? Yeah. These images which look like warriors, they represent the Ashtavasus, 8 Vasus which we have there. And through that big hall you enter, you see the great image of Shiva there. The Brahadishwara, they call it. People call this Brahadishwara today. And this temple is Brahadishwara temple, the big temple and all that. The original name of this temple was supposed to be Rajarajeshwaram, built by Rajaraja, and this the Shiva Linga, which is inside the sanctum, was known as Rajarajeshwaram Udaya Perudayar. He was known as Perudaya the Great. So today, in due course of time, the name is changed and it's known as Brahadishwara from the Nayak period times onwards. And people call Tanje Periya Koil and all that. But originally the temple was named after the builder Rajaraja, and it was known as Raja Rajeshwaram, and this Raja Rajeshwaram Lingam is known as Tanje Peruvudayar. Now come and see this beautiful structure. The Vimana on top of the sanctum, which is really tall, standing about 216 feet from the ground, with the Kalasa on top. And you have the front hall totally leading to you to the sanctum, and you have the two sideways on either side of that. The entire structure of this is built in granite. The whole structure of this temple is totally built in granite. The granite is not available anywhere in the Tanjavur Delta area. There's no rock formation there. All these granites were quarried from elsewhere and brought in here, transported almost about 80 to 900 kilometers away from this place, brought in and then dressed up and built it. Most of these granites were brought in from Dinamalar, they say, and there are certain evidences also which confirms that this is from Dinamalar area. In approximately, they have used 135,000 metric tons of granite to build this particular temple. If it is 135,000 in this weight, before dressing, it should have another some more weight. You can imagine that much of granite was quarried from about 80 kilometers, transported. Those days we did not have the multi-axle vehicles like what we have today. Neither we had the crane facilities and so many other things to do. The modern gadgets were not available for them to do it. But they did it in a very, very simple manner. They have built this wonderful temple. The entire temple is granite quarried from elsewhere. Look at that huge tower. It's built in two levels. Almost about 60 feet, it is two-floored structure. You have a Sandhara or the Prakara inside, and it goes as a double wall structure, and then it builds up into the huge one and a big Viman, that stupi on the top. It's such a huge construction. Look at that. A magnificent pyramidal structure going to up to 13 levels right on the top. And that's a huge shikara that you see there on the top. Look at that. This huge shikara. This shikara is weighing approximately about 80 metric tons. You would have seen in many of the, or else you would have read it somewhere. There was a big slope and ramp, and then the whole thing was transported there. It's a single stone which was taken from a ramp about 6 kilometers. They built it and kept it on top. All that's not, it's only a story. Even BBC came out with a document trying to say that this is a single piece of stone. Actually, it's a multiple piece of stones which are placed. It's approximately about 80 metric tons. This was all taken there and kept there, wonderfully there. They had very simple techniques of how to do it. I'll also explain that. But imagine 80 metric tons on top of that height of 200 odd feet. Is unimaginable feat that could be performed even today by any of the most wonderful architects or builders, or so, with all the modern gadgets which are available with us now. Now, this is the drawing which shows how the temple has risen to that level. You have a double wall system. First wall is almost about 13 feet and 11 feet interwall, and you have a 6 feet gap around that, and the whole thing raises to the height of 60 feet, this double wall structure. And over and above that, they have placed these stones and built this wonderful tower. And they have not used any plaster. It will be like this. They have not used any plaster or anything. It's just the dressed stones which is kept one above the other and risen to the height of 216 feet. It's hollow inside. You have the double wall structure like that, and you see that the first floor level is also there. Ground level, the prakara, which is called as Sandara, where you have paintings of the Chola era, and on the top level, you have the sculptures depicting the Bharatanatyam Karanas, as if Shiva himself is dancing those Karanas. Okay? And this is a beautiful way in which the temple was built there. All stones were dressed and placed one above the other, and this is how it looks from inside. If you look from inside, it's just the hollow right up to the top. They have placed it in such a wonderful manner. Even after thousands of years, not even water, single drip of water, rainwater enters in. To that extent, it was so beautifully packed and done it. It's a marvelous thing to see about this temple. Now look at this. It's rising to the height of 2 floors, I said. The first floor is almost there, 20 feet, and again 20, 25 feet, all that. So it's such a wonderful one which is built on 2-floor level. The first floor level of outer walls carry some beautiful sculptures of the temple. And right above there, on the first level, you have different forms of, a form of Shiva. A lot of people call it Tripurantaka. I'll come to it later. This is the side entry to the temple. We have 2 great Dwarapalakas and the flight of steps that leads you from the sanctum down to the prakara. And these people often mistake between Dwarapalakas and images like this. This is on the 3 sides of the main Vimana. They are called as the Astra Devatas. The Shiva has got so many astras or weapons he holds, and this is the Khadga Devata and something like that. So the Astra Devata, 6 of them are also depicted there, and they are often misconceived as Dwarapalas. The Dwarapalas are different. These are all Astra Devatas. Look at the sculptures that you see on the first level. A lot of you think that Shiva is standing with a bow and arrow in different angles and different portions. A lot of people, when you consider Shiva with a bow and arrow, you think it is Tripurantaka form of Shiva, where he destroyed the 3 demons with a bow and arrow, things like that. But actually these are the representations of the Rudras. Shiva has Satarudri, 100 Rudras are there. So these are all the representations of the Rudras that you see there. And you can see that. How is it? Rudra with a bow and arrow, Trishul and all. Such a wonderful representation in different forces of Rudras are given on the top. And down below, the first level, you have lovely sculptures. This is one of the first sculptures that you come across. People think it is Lingodbhava. Shiva coming out of the Linga form and all that. But actually this is a Chakradhana Murti. Mahavishnu prayed to Shiva, offering his eye, and Shiva blessed him with this Sudarshan Chakra. So this is a Chakradhana Murti, the first sculpture that you find here. So many interesting sculptures are there. And it needs a lot of time for us to go through everything in detail. Given the time of 45 minutes, I would like to do whatever justice I can do for this. This is Nataraja. And this is Mahalakshmi. You have Shiva as Kala Samhara Murti. Shiva killed the demon, the Yama. That story is very beautifully depicted. Yama is coming here with the Pasha. Markandeya is hugging on to Shiva. And Shiva kicks Yama and saves Markandeya. That story is very beautifully depicted in the sculpture. as Kalasamhara Murti. You have Uma Sahita, Shiva with beautifully hugging around Uma in a very, very beautiful posture. This is Uma Sahita Murti. And the typical, what you call signature of the Chola temples, you will find this question yalis. Beautiful yali. It's called as Tamil, they call it yali varis. And every levels they use this yali varis in a very beautiful form. And this is one of the most wonderful yali varis that you could see, which is there in this wonderful temple of Bragadishwara. And this temple carries plenty of inscriptions. Now you can think why you have so much of inscriptions. Why do we have that? And what do they call it? I mean, what do they convey to you? And these are all written in some form of language which you do not understand today. These are all called the Tamil Granthas or Vattelte and all that. And all these things, when you decipher it and see it, it gives you the complete historical records of the temple. How the temple was built, what were the contributions made to the temple by whom, and what were the contributions of the king, and what all he did for that particular temple, and how many people have contributed, how these people were settled and nomads, how it was done, and what were all the things happening in the temple, and how the lamps were lit in the temple, and for which whoever caused the donations and how it was made. All these vivid details, up to the details, are given here wonderfully in this. And there are plenty of records available in the modern texts also, which has been deciphered and given. So you can understand a lot of history, know about the greatness of the people who had built this temple and what mentality they had for the entire world to enjoy this temple. They had built this and they had offered this. You can understand from these inscriptions. Now the corridors, huge corridors running on the 3 sides of the temple, 4 sides of the temple. Huge corridors. These corridors which were built there in those days were not only a place for you to come and sit and relax. These were the places where they taught you the language, Tamil, Sanskritam. Then they taught you different forms of art like music, dance, paintings, and everything related with art forms and language and tevarams and all those things. And all these temples with these huge corridors functioned in those days something like a university or a school where everything, the knowledge was transferred. It was a place where the knowledge was transferred. That's why they built these huge corridors. And it's not a place for you to be, like you see today, many of the people sleeping in these corridors. It is not meant for that. It was meant for people to utilize, to enrich their knowledge and to know more about our Samskriti. So this was how these corridors were created. And this is the beautiful corridors you find on the 4 sides. Rajarajan, when he built this wonderful temple of Bragadishwara, he built only one sub-shrine along with that. And that's the Chandikeshwara sub-shrine. This was the only temple built by Rajaraja along with the temple of Peruvudayar. Chandikesha is the attendant of Shiva who keeps you count of the devotees who come there. So this was the only particular sub-shrine which was built by Rajaraja apart from the sub-shrines on the corridors of this. The other small temples that you see in this campus, this come up later. You see this? This is the Ganapati temple on the south side. This temple was built by the Maratha kings and a Ganapati has been installed into this. Later, much later in the 17th century, 17th or 18th century by Marathas. And this is again a beautiful temple dedicated to Subramanya, which was again a contribution of the Vijayanagar Nayaks during 17th century. Even though this is a very late temple, the architecture of this temple is something beautiful, phenomenal, which praises about the greatness of the Dravidian architecture. And this is the temple dedicated to Subramanya. And this temple, right in front of the Nandi, you see here, this is a beautiful temple dedicated to Devi Brahannayaki. They called it Periyanayaki Amman. This temple was not originally there when Rajaraja built it. This was a later addition during the 13th centuries made by the Pandya kings. And you find the beautiful temple of Devi dedicated here, seen in this. So all these temples, small structures, which are dedicated by different kings over a period of time. Now, we have seen this temple at a glance. I did not go into very details explaining to you with the capacity of the time. I've just given you a small glimpse of what it is. Now let's know something more about this temple to understand it better. And why do you call it as a great temple or one of the marvelous wonders? Today it's been recognized as a World Heritage Site for its wonderful and a living Chola temple. But I would say this temple has to get the recognition as a wonder of the world. There are so many wonders of the world. But then this also should go and one day to become a wonder of the world, because there's so much of interesting facts about this temple which makes you sound, I never knew this. That sort of a thing is there. So let's see some of the interesting facts about that. The total temple was built by the king the Rajaraja 1000 years back. And this entire temple, which is a total granite structure, quarried from 80 to 100 kilometers away, brought in and completed in a span of 10 years. 10 years' time, he had completed this temple. You are all from Coimbatore. You know the flyover from Avinashi Road to that end near the airport had taken 7 years. To build a flyover for 1.5 kilometers with concrete and so much of all the gadgets which are available with us has taken 7 years to complete. A temple totally built of granite, quarried 80 kilometers away from there, brought in, dressed in and built it to this level. And that too in a record time of 10 years. It's an unimaginable feat that has been done here. The temple built of granite, these granites were quarried from Narthamalai in Pudukkottai district, about 80 to 100 kilometers away from there. So, while bringing that from there, they had to cross rivers and come. They never had bridges. They did not have the multi-axle vehicles. But they used simple techniques to bring it. And that's, again, a debatable thing, and a lot of people give their own opinions about it. I'm not going much into the detail of it. So, all these things were, only thing you have to understand this, were quarried from there. With so much of obstacles on the way, they were brought in here and to used for building this beautiful temple. It is said that approximately 135,000 metric tons of granite stones were used to build this temple. 135,000 metric tons. Imagine it. That much of granite is used and built this temple. It's mind-boggling to know that they had transported these blocks so far and what sort of transport they have used for making this particular thing, which is, again, a big question that is to be debated. Now you see here, these are the walls. You don't see the stones in one row like your brick structure. You have a brick structure, it's all single lines. Right? Here, the stones as a condition that they was cut and brought it, they were assembled and made the complete walls. Like that you see on the top, here also you see down below. It's not a one single straight line. Why did they do it? They could have done it very neatly with all those things. Right? Like what you see here. They have used different sizes of stones, built this. And this is one stone placed upon the other. It is no mortar or anything used in this. So how did they do it and why did they do it? When they did this particular system of what they do is called as Katumanam. And this method gave a leverage to take it for the seismic disturbances. If there is an earthquake or anything, the whole structure, such a huge structure, such a tall structure, such a heavy structure will not fall. So that can take away. So that's how all this entire wall and the entire temple has been built in. Now, you have another interesting feature. When you entered the main door of the first gate of the Rajarajan Tiruvallur, Kerala Tiruvallur, you find the door frame. This is a big single piece stone standing tall to 45 feet, almost about 6 feet in weight and again about 4 feet or so in wide. This particular single stone that you see as a door jamb weighs approximately 60 metric tons. And this stone was brought in an undressed condition, dressed up and placed here. This is the single largest stone that has been used in this particular temple, weighing approximately 60 metric tons. It's just unimaginable how they could do it. We just passed through, everybody passes through this particular gate. But have you ever cared to look into this particular stone and seen? And when you see that, you understand the greatness. Or there is nobody to tell you what it is. Unfortunately, it is a pathetic condition that we go through is that people do not know. They are all ignorant. And there is no proper guide to tell you about these things to enlighten you. Thereby, when you know all these things, your visit to the temple is enhanced. You will start appreciating it more. Do you or not? Will you? Yes. That's way it's been like this. So this is the biggest stone that is used in this particular temple. Now, looking back at the manpower required for this construction of this Herculean task and transporting and how did they manage it? It's again a mind-boggling question. Quarrying, dressing, sculpting the images, all these operations needed different quality of chisels. And they had to be of different grades of steels. Now, if you use a chisel, now we don't have the carbide tips and all those days. So the hardened chisels were used. So when you hit it about 10 times, that becomes blunt. Again, you have to use another chisel to make it go further. So if you want to do the sculpting of this entire grand structure, how much of chisels were there? How much of iron and that hardening process were taking place? How many people were engaged in this? And every day, if you roughly calculate also, you will be requiring about thousands, at least minimum 50 to 30,000 chisels every day for a person to work. And if that has to be a continuous supply for it, how much of iron they had to do it, how much of process should have been there, what is the minimum stock level they should, all these are modern gadgets which we work out. It is just mind-boggling to know how beautifully they had organized the supply chain, brought in all these things, and to beautifully carve this wonderful temple. Imagine the quality Around the clock it should have worked. It's a complete process that took 24/7 working for 10 years to make this particular temple. Now, construction of the magnitude involved labor and huge financial requirements. Right? So, now the question where the money is from. Rajarajan did not contribute something from his own. All the money required came from different wars that the Chola kings waged during their tenure. The plundered wealth of the enemy country were brought in, and those people had some sort of a understanding. Some particular share of the plundered wealth goes to the king also, and that wealth is what is being used to construct this. And the prisoners, the enemy country prisoners who were taken as prisoners of war, they were used as laborers to work at this. See, when you see the Egyptian pyramids were built by slaves, or even if Taj Mahal and other things were built by slaves or things like that. Here, these war prisoners were engaged to do the construction, and when they were doing this, of course they had their food, everything, and after the completion of this, I believe they were given hefty sums to go back to their places. So that was the treatment. So in order to build this, every money was spent to build this. It was not taken from, snatched away from somebody's. Hard work was not snatched away. Raja claims in his inscription that this temple were built by the contributions made by him, his queens, his sister, and all the others. And he vividly gives whoever has contributed, whatever thing is very clearly given in the inscriptions all around. The contributions Rajaraja, whatever he made, was his share of war booty. He did not use it for personal use or anything. He built this beautiful temple of Rajarajeshwaram. Now, Vimana, which I said is about 216 feet from the base, and the octagonal shigara that you see is approximately 80 metric tons. And there is a golden kalasa which is 12 feet placed on the top. Now, the 96 feet square base of the sanctum is a double wall structure which rises to that height and tapers into the pyramidical form. And the foundation for such a huge, heavy structure, if you can imagine, it is just 5 feet. Just 5 feet is the foundation. Today you see the foundations are going deep like that. And then the bearing of the weight is taken. Here, they've used a wonderful technique of spreading the weight over the entire area of the temple. Instead of concentrating it totally onto one area, they have spread out the weight of this foundation throughout the premises of the temple, so this heavy structure can stand like that. The entire area of the temple were excavated to about 10-20 feet, filled with sand. And over and above that, they had placed total stones, blocks of granite were placed in the crisscross pattern and filled with sand. And then they started construction about that. So the row of slabs were placed north-south axis, east-west axis and things like that. And then the entire 5 feet was fully of granite, which is spread throughout the area of the temple. And then they started building this. And this is how they built this wonderful Vimana. The structure, weight, which is so heavy, is distributed entirely to the whole area of the temple. The construction of the Vimana started from the base. As and when they grew in size, there was a ramp built around that. And with that ramp, the stones were moved and totally. So when this Vimana was completed, nobody could see this, what was done. Only when they removed the entire sand filling, whatever it is there, the Vimana was exposed to the whole world. Till that, they have done that way. And the entire ramp was a simple 15-degree ramp going all around the temple like that and went up to that. So it was filled totally with sand, and when this Vimana was completed, later when they removed only, this Vimana came to the light and we could see such a magnificent structure there. The chief architect of this temple was known as Kunjaramalla Peruntachan, and his assistant was Nitya Vinodana Peruntachan. They were all given the titles given by the Rajaraja, who were the chief architects of this temple. And this temple was designed by not a measurement of a scale. It was because Rajaraja built it. The entire temple was built on a measurement of the index finger or the middle finger of Rajaraja. The distance between this line and this line in the finger was taken, and then with that multiples is what has been built. And that's why it gets the name Rajarajeshwaram, because it was built for Rajaraja, by Rajaraja, and so on. Now, how do we understand how it was done? Today we don't have any evidence there. There's a temple in Bhojpur near Bhopal. This temple is again a big temple built around the same time of Rajaraja. And if this is an unfinished temple. If this temple had been completed, it would have been much bigger and much beautiful than Rajaraja's temple. That's what they claim. The entire design of this temple is etched on the rocks all around that place. Such a beautiful Bhojpur temple. Now here you see this Bhojpur temple. The Shivalinga is so huge. So huge. That's the size of the people who are standing there. Such a huge Shivalinga. And look at that. The ramp comes and stands very close to the temple. The ramp originally built for above constructions above stands there. Even for 1,000 years now it is like that. Unfortunately the king died in a war or something. This temple was abandoned after that. So this particular thing gives you a vivid, clear example how the ramp went around the temple and the whole temple was built like that. See that? That's the temple, and look at the ramp coming up to that. And all the designs for the temple, how the construction should be there, is all etched on these rocks around there. Even today you can see that. Now there are plenty of inscriptions in this temple. Rajaraja has inscribed more than 300 inscriptions in this, and retaining to the contributions made by him, his sisters and others, wife and others, everything. Not only they contributed for the construction, but also donated more than 60 and odd Utsav Murtis of the temple to be worshipped in different forms during the festivals. And these Utsav Murtis were adorned with jewels, crowns, everything made of gold, pearl, silver, diamond, whatsoever everything was there. Now, we have record of this. Rajaraja and his wife had donated many copper images to this temple as processional deities. His wife, Lokama Devi, gave a Uma Parameshwari, and his queen, Panchavan Mahadevi, made a Tripurantaka image, which you see here, and she called it as Tanjai Elagar. This image is now available in the Tanjavur Museum. And this is the beautiful Nataraja image that you see here. This Nataraja image, Rajarajan called it as Adavallan. And this Adavallan is the only, and Shivakam Sundari are the only surviving images of Rajaraja's era, which is still under worship in this particular temple. And one of his ministers, made the image of this Rajaraja and his queen, Lokama Devi, and presented to the temple, whenever there is a procession going around inside the temple, the image of Rajaraja and his wife will be going facing the god around this particular temple that you see there. Dedicating the entire temple to the nation, he is always there. He is known as Shivapada Shekaran. So this image again was stolen from the temple, and it was in one of the private collections in India. Thank God it's come back, and now it's again in the temple. Unfortunately, this is kept in a very dark corner in the temple, and people fail to recognize what a beautiful image of Rajaraja and his queen is there, who did this great thing. And this was donated by one of his ministers there. Plenty of jewels, many gold jewels were donated with precious gems and pearls studded on them. He clearly gives the details in all the inscriptions, giving the weight of the gold, the weight of the stone separately, and that of the pearls. He also notifies the weight of wax used in this filling or making this particular ornament whatsoever. For the number of diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, pearls used in the jewels and their shape, along the size and weight are given in vivid description there. He also states from where he got this gold, from where he got this rubies and diamonds, everything there. Now, you may wonder why the hell he should give all these descriptions. Why the hell it should be given there? He has donated, let it keep it secretly. Why should he put it in his inscriptions? The reason why he put this all in his inscription is that people have to know. His lifespan is short. He goes away. The temple stays for thousands of years. People who come to know should understand that this is given and it is still there intact. If that is not found, they should take the cause of missing quality, take with the people concerned with that. So with that great intention of involving every citizen to know about the greatness of this temple, he has done that. It is not a small thing that he has given all these things to boast about his images. It is for the world to understand what it is. That is the forethought of the great King Rajaraja. The 16 upacharas are there. We call it Shodasha Upachara Puja for every day in the God. Like Dhyanam, Avahanam, Padyam, Argyam and all that. In one of that is that the Shiva is Vadyam, Geetam and Nrityam. Nrityam is one of the important upacharas of the Shiva Puja, and he created a beautiful form of sculptures all around the first floor level of the 108 Karanas. 87 are completed and balance is left unfinished. He had appointed 400 dancers to perform in this temple during the pujas. Especially during the festival times, it was much more. A lot of people. These dancers were accommodated in 3 streets near the temple, and each dancer was allotted a house with a door number and the street and number of their name and the place, everything from where they had come, everything is given in an inscription. You know? Yeah, over? 1 minute. This inscription is the lengthiest inscription, running around 270 feet in 4 lines that you find in the temple. He had appointed 180 persons to sing Tevarams in the temple. There were persons playing Madhalam, Udukai and so many other things. And all their names are also given. Rajara appointed many persons to play different kinds of musical instruments and honored them. And so many things happened in this particular temple during his time. Rajaraja may have donated Rajaraja and many others donated for the burning lamps in the temple. Many of the army officers who were involved with the war against the Cheras in Kandalur were especially repentant. Normally cows and goats were donated for the cause, and they say 96 cows are there given to one person, and he will give the required quantity of ghee to the perpetual lamp to be burned there, and so on. What we see is only a glimpse of this temple. There's much more to know. Many have submitted their theses about this great temple, bringing how the rainwater harvesting was managed. So many topics about this particular temple. There's enough scope to explore and learn more about this great temple. Thank you for the opportunity. If there is any questions, I would like to take it.
Thank you, sir. Your extensive information and description are clearly etched in our minds, and I'm sure all of us will look at the temple with a clearer understanding when we visit the temple next. Thank you. Thank you once again. May I request Mr. Kishan, our director, to hand over the memento to Mr. Gurumurthy. Thank you, sir. Our next session will begin at 10:45, and we will be having a talk by Mrs. Sai Swarupa Iyer at 10:45. For Sai Swarupa ma'am's session, we will have Kikani Global School, grades 5 and 6, Holy Sai School, grades 5 to 9, Advaita School,